welcome back to For Your Future, where I hit up experts to get you answers to questions you might have on how to get through quarantine. So on today's episode, I hit up the editor-in-chief of Sad Girls Club on Instagram to get us some tips on mental health. Check it out. Brianne, how are you? I'm so happy that you're here to talk about Sad Girls Club. But first, how are you doing? Where are you?
I am in DC right now. I am visiting my in-laws and my baby girl. She lives here full time with them. They help take care of her. So that is where I am. I'll be going back to the city this weekend, though. I'm excited.
Sad Girls Club. Let's talk about it. What is it?
Sad Girls Club. Our founder, as you know, is Elise Fox, and she founded it in 2017. It stems from her releasing her own video on YouTube called Conversations with Friends. And it basically just talks about her own struggle with, mental health. And it went viral. And so from there, she saw a need within the community, within Gen Z, within millennials, within Black and brown bodies to kind of really curtail the conversation around mental health. It's still a heavily stigmatized, topic. It's still something that we don't really understand within our familial spaces, and particularly when it comes to the Black community. And so as Sad Girls Club, we are open to informing and really educating the conversations around mental health.
And what better space to do that than on your phone, right? Like I literally have y'all's pulled up on my phone. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes.
I feel like you all have done such a great job at like not only curating that, on social media, but then acknowledging, right, that that's
Mm-hmm.
not always a conversation that we have in the Black community. Why do you think we need these kind of spaces?
We have so much information and access to just anything. Whereas before we didn't really have that. So our minds were kind of shielded in a way and not really what our community is basically what we saw. But now we have the internet, so we see everything. And so we're always comparing ourselves. And Instagram in particular will have you thinking that somebody's life is one way when it's really another. And so with Sad Girls Club in particular, there's no sugarcoating. There is no, we might, if we don't feel like it today, we're going to let you know we don't feel like it today. And I think being able to, for other women, for other, young women and young men and women to see that gives them the same permission to say, I can't do it today, or, I need help today, or this is what I'm feeling and I don't know what to do with it. And so maybe they can go and have the conversation with their mother, their therapist, their friend.
Why do you think that having conversations around mental health right now is so important?
Because we at home. No, but for real though, we at home. So we, especially for those of us who might live by ourselves, or even not necessarily by ourselves, when we are at work or when we are busy with extracurricular activities or just whatever, we don't necessarily have to face those things. We can just be out all night, all day, and then come home and sleep and then, avoid it in a way. But now we can't avoid it. Everything that we thought we were avoiding is now being mirrored and echoed back to us. So now we have no choice but to really get down to the meat of it and get down to the understanding of it to really deal with it. And then dealing with it requires us to talk about it. It requires us to confront it. And so many of us don't like to confront our things. We confront everybody else, but we won't confront ourselves. Coronavirus makes everything like it's in your face. There's nothing left for it to hide behind.
How do we deal with the actual impact that this, pandemic has made on us?
You just have to feel it. I think that's the number one thing, is acknowledging and feeling it. Once you acknowledge and you feel it, then you can name it. If you are feeling frustrated, if you are feeling depressed, if you are feeling whatever, you have to actively name those things. We internalize so much, especially as Black women and as Black bodies. We internalize so much, and that internalization informs the conversations that we are having with ourselves, the internal conversations we are having with ourselves. And those conversations often lead to affirming ourselves in the negative rather than affirming ourselves in the positive. We automatically assume that, once we get to the pinpoint and once we choose the affirmation that we're automatically going to believe it. But that's not how affirmations work. Affirmations are not instantaneous. You have to keep saying it until you one day believe it. And you have to keep saying it until it's the first and absolute thought in your mind. It takes a huge practice to choose yourself every day. That's all it is. It's affirmations, dealing with your, your trauma, your issues, is you really choosing yourself every day and knowing that at the end of the day, you are human. So, while you might have feel you're a whole and healed, I consider myself to be, a whole and healed individual. But that doesn't mean that something's still not going to trigger me like tomorrow or even after we get off this call. I might still be triggered, but it's the understanding and having a self-care plan around that trigger and knowing that how I responded maybe yesterday or, even earlier in the year, 5 years ago, is not how I have to respond today.
Girl, all right. What's in your self-care plan? Let's talk about this self-care plan. How can I get one, and what's in yours?
First of all, it's asking, really listening to your intuition and asking what it is that you need. What I always ask myself in the morning, how can I stand in my power? What does my body need today? And so that might mean, it might be me diving fully into my work. I always feel my best self when I am diving into my work. My work will always affirm me. Or it might be me, watching Netflix all day, or it might be me getting off my diet for a moment to dive into a pint of ice cream. It don't matter, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but for real though, like that's what it is. So your self-care plan can be, it's not like a definitive answer. It's you really listening to your heart center, to your roots, your solar plexus, your sacral chakra, all of those things. Is really listening to your whole and divine body and allowing it to say, hey, this is what I need from you today. I might need you to go run your toes through the grass. I do that all the time. Or I might need you to just sit with yourself and journal. Maybe you just need to cry. I'm a firm believer in having a random cry. Ain't nothing got to be wrong, but sometimes you just need to cry. And then, you be like, all right, I'm putting my Superwoman cape back on and I can get back to work now.
And, I would be remiss not to mention just so much of, one, what we, as Black people have to deal with day in and day out. But on top of a pandemic, right, we're dealing with protests. Many folks going in and out of the streets, having to shout names of different Black people killed, right? What does that do to the psyche? What does that do to one's mental health, to one's self-care plan?
I think actually all of us have been really realizing like the undertone in the various ways that we experience racism in ourselves, like how, not in ourselves, but like how we've all experienced racism and not necessarily thought of it as racism in that moment. Like I was on Twitter, and I'm probably going to jack up this tweet because I always say it wrong, but I was on Twitter and this girl said that being Black in America is walking into a store and then being afraid to walk out because you didn't buy anything. And then I'm sitting there and I'm thinking of the number of times I have walked into a store and have actively been afraid to walk out because I'm thinking, well, if I have a purse or if I have a shopping bag, like one of those reusable shopping bags or whatever, I'm thinking, oh, they might have thought that especially if it's full of stuff that I've already bought from another store, I don't want them to think that I'm stealing. So I'm like stopping. I'm like, hey, do you need to check my bag? Do you need this? Whatever. And how even those kind of microaggressions really stem from us having Black skin. And in that, I've been thinking about even how, as a mother, my daughter is 9. Her father is 6'3". We are not together, but he's 6'3", 300 pounds. That his stature in itself is a threat to someone non-Black. Or how my girlfriend, Elise's baby Bash just turned 1, and knowing that this is what we are still dealing with, even though people would be like, oh, this happened so long ago. It really didn't.
Not at all.
Harriet Tubman died in 1913, bro. Like, think about it. That's not that long ago. That is not that long ago. It was like, what, 2 generations ago? My father's parents. Their parents.
Goosebumps anytime I think about it.
I'm just like, what do you want it? Like, what do you mean for us to get over it when it's not even you don't even see it as an issue. You don't see it as something that is still an issue. You think we're making this up, and you think that us having to name our kids some non-ethic name so they can one day have a job or whatever, it's us, creating stories in our minds, when it's not. This is our experience. This is we didn't learn, like y'all didn't learn violence from us. We learned it from you. I just don't understand what all we are supposed to do. And so when we are out here, our generation is out here marching and doing whatever it is that we need to do, and now you're kind of listening but still not really getting it. I'm just like, what more? How much more do we have to sacrifice? How many more black bodies have to be sacrificed in order for you to really hear and understand this? We're not a harmful people.
Well, Brianne, I just, for one, want to thank you. These are tough conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's something to that too, how easily it is for us to talk about things like this that are happening, but we're not just talking about fruit and vegetables, we're talking about lives and
Yes.
experiences that Black people have to face day in and day out. And I just want to thank you for, your vulnerability, your efforts with, Sad Girls Club, and again, with this conversation that we're even having right now. And I think that's, for me personally, been the biggest takeaway. One of the biggest takeaways from this year is just seeing, how folks are coming together in community, how we're able to have these conversations and say, no, it's not just you, or no, it's not just me.
Mm-hmm.
That other people are feeling the same way, that I can share this burden with someone else, that no, I may not, have known you hours ago. Yesterday, you and I never met, but today, there is this kindred spirit because of the struggles that we all face.
Yes.
And, the commonalities and what we know, and, how much farther we have to go, and how not far away it's been that our ancestors have had to, deal with. But I think that there is power in community. And I, for one, I mentioned to you already, girl, I'm an advocate for mental health, an advocate for, self-care. And I think that, folks would agree, our generation would agree, that now more than ever, this is like the best time to, come into terms and face, those skeletons, have these hard conversations.
Yes.